Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I am here with the Coach John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Mr. N. Griffin. And you know what? What do you think about the new music we got?
Man, I like
It's
it.
a little bit more mellow. Is
It's
it
a
because
little
we're getting
more
older?
We are. I mean,
Aren't you 58, 59?
72. I mean, I'm 52.
Yeah. And now if I say that, it's a joke because if not, they could cancel our show or you
Yeah.
could sue me, I guess, for talking about you
Yeah,
being old.
yeah.
I don't know.
I give you permission. So we're going to talk about, Coach, today is suppression of speech.
First Amendment.
Yeah,
issue,
and so,
for sure.
you know, when you and I were growing up, we'd always think of the Democratic Party as the party that always supported all the Bill of Rights, all the first 10 amendments, that were all on board with freedom of speech, freedom of journalism, you know, all
Freedom of
those
expression was
freedom of
huge.
expression.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, you think about Berkeley, and
right.
if you think about Berkeley in the 60s, they might have graduated, I don't know, in 1 year. I don't know what they would have graduated, 30,000 people, 20,000 people, 10,000 people, and 2 Republicans out of all that. The rest were all Democrats, you know.
Yeah.
And
And I consider myself to be, more conservative than liberal. There's no doubt about that. But one of the things that I do understand was in the 1970s, early 70s, all the way through, the mid 80s, there was a huge movement on college campuses and even, across the country of more freedom of speech, more freedom of expression. And we want to hear more ideas. We want to hear more thoughts. We want to hear more things. And then we can decide as a individual, I think I'm going to swing this way or I'm going to go that way. I think I'm going to be more of this or a little bit more of that. Now, if you do not align with a certain subsect of the liberal wing, then you are canceled or you're considered to be racist or phobic, like we've talked about before. And it's almost flipped, where now you want the conservatives are actually pushing for more freedom of speech and freedom of expression, which that's kind of weird in the whole history of that.
If you look back in time, I'm going to dig up some dirt here, some old guys, Voltaire.
Yeah.
Voltaire and the Enlightenment. But what did Voltaire bring to the table? To me, to be honest, I didn't think highly of Voltaire until his latter years. I mean, I thought he was a Michael Moore of his time. He was just a little punk that was spoiled, that put out some and nobody really gave a crap. But then he came up with the freedom of the press. And he really pushed that because he disagreed with certain things that were going on. And he goes, if I print this out and I get this out, everybody can see it. And then he's kind of a foundation of the freedom of press and freedom of speech.
And freedom of thought.
Yes, yes. And so in the 50s and 60s, more in the 60s and 70s, I would say, what you were referring to is we learned during that time that not one opinion should be prevalent, but multiple opinions, and you might take a little bit from each one, or you might say, you're batshit crazy, but I'm going to take these other 5 opinions and make it and massage it in my own. And that's kind of what was supposed to happen, was freedom of expression. So we went from the Enlightenment way back in the days to now woke, which is really asleep.
It really is.
It really is asleep.
You don't think at all.
Yeah, you don't think. You have to think the way I told you to think. Orson Welles, 1984, is what's going on. You have to think the way I'm telling you to think, not the way you have been brought up and your experiences think. Because if you don't, what could happen to you? Well, let me read a few things that can happen to you. If you're only the most powerful man in the world, and I don't like how you think or express yourself, I will ban you from my platform for multiple years.
Sure,
Well,
based on, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but based on what you're saying is a lie. Well, name me one politician that's been a president, a vice president, or high in office that doesn't tell lies.
the current president right now lies all the time. We just pointed out, we don't twist his words. We just use his words. His words is all I have to use, because he will say this today, and 2 days later, he will do a 180 on it. And, I mean, I just pointed out, it's easy. He's the easiest person to write about because he's so easy to point out.
And they're still talking about him on all these radio stations and TV stations.
You know,
when they wanted to cut him off. We want to take him off Twitter. No Facebook, no Instagram, no social media. But let's talk about him all day long.
Yeah, but the current one is so easy because he doesn't even wait 6 months to lie about it. He just does it the next day, you know. So you have that, and then if we don't agree with you in the asleep phase, well, let's stop calling it woke. We'll call it sleep. Mm-hmm. During the sleep phase, if you don't agree with us, or if you don't say things to fluff our flowers up in the morning, we'll kick you off congressional committees. I don't agree with the things that they say, But that don't mean they should be kicked off committees. If we cannot kick off a person off a committee for sleeping with a spy and leave them on the intelligence committee. And I'm not saying that to be partisan in there. I'm saying that because if we can't even get that common sense to kick somebody off of a committee from the Intelligence Committee for National Security of the United States, for sleeping with a spy, we don't know what all happened. I mean,
Well, it just depends on the party you're in. Look at Joe Biden back some of the things he said about, going to school with black people 30 years ago, but now we don't talk about that.
Well, I think really today's sleep culture, because people will call it woke culture, but sleep is only awake or woke if it pertains to my party and it benefits my party at the time. If it doesn't, then it's not awoke. It's the same thing with Bill Clinton and his escapades with the intern. Let's don't call it the Monica Lewinsky case. Let's call it what it needs to be called, the Bill Clinton sexual drive case. Right. That's what it needs to be called. And
well, that's a good point.
And that there, though, is overbrushed for how many years? Mm-hmm. Because, hey, he's the face of our party.
Well, look at the Democrats. They know Bill Clinton, what he did. I mean, not only with Paula Jones and some of the other ones that they actually brought out when the election was going on with Hillary Clinton and Trump, but all those things that they said, well, if that would have happened in 2020, it would have been looked at differently. So what they're doing is not looking at the past. But then when you see people like the governor of Virginia Northern that dressed up as Michael Jackson with his blackface because he really could dance very well for Halloween, they bring that up because they can do it. Who they don't want in power, they will bring up the past. Who they want in power, they don't talk about it.
If you think about that, and I'm getting away from the speech part, but why is AOC in power? Because the person that she was running against that was a Democrat, they ostracized and they propped her up.
Yeah.
So we needed somebody else.
Or the prop up and the money goes.
Yep. So
and so you're talking about the freedom of speech. One thing I do want to say is a person should have their own ideology.
Yes.
You have to listen to both sides of an argument. Most people know that I went to a Baptist seminary. Well, most people that go to a conservative Baptist seminary only believe one thing, and that's what they focus on. Well, they didn't teach us that. While I was in seminary, I listened to a guy named Christopher Hitchens, and he was an atheist. And his brother, Peter Hitchens, was a Christian. They used to do these debates back and forth. I listen to both sides. I enjoy listening to both of them. I actually have a book by Christopher Hitchens on my shelf. God is not great. Does that mean I'm an atheist? In today's time, somebody would walk into my library here if I was a politician and go, wait a minute, he's got the Communist Manifesto on his shelf. And he also has a book about Rudy Giuliani. Oh, and he has a book about an atheist. They could pick one of those and say, that's totally who I am, instead of me being educated enough to read to figure out why do people believe and think a certain way, and then decide myself, this is what I believe, and now I even believe it more because I read the opposite.
Yeah.
People don't do that anymore.
Well, I will say, if you go to mine, I have a book, and it was one of the first college courses I took in the military. I happened to be in Stuttgart, Germany, and I took a college course while I was in Stuttgart on Hitler. And I'm like, I'm in Germany. Why not take it here? This is probably the best place.
And you're
to
white.
Yeah.
In America now?
And
boy, you're in trouble.
And I have a book called Adolf Hitler. And it's by Toland. It is a phenomenal book if you want to study about him. Why would we not want to study about people that have done atrocities so we can learn from them, that we make sure they never come back in power, or another person, a version of them come in power. But like you said, if somebody walks in my house, they will come out and go, oh, he's probably a dang Nazi or something.
If they are a very liberal and progressive person, they're going to take something that they can find and go, aha. That's why he doesn't believe what I believe, because he's white supremacist, he's this, or this.
They will use the 10,000-mile spy satellite viewpoint. That's what I see. That's what I'm zoning in on. Exactly. And that's it. And whereas, I can tell you all about how he came in power. I can tell you all about the effects of him. I can tell you what perpetuated him and what didn't, to ensure that it doesn't happen in our government. And that's the difference of it.
And just recently, just think about this, Herschel Walker.
Yep.
Herschel Walker was a American success story from the dirt poor.
Yes.
Went to Georgia, became a Heisman Trophy winner, got drafted and went to the USFL first, and
Yes.
then the National Football League. Retired as a freaking amazing person. People looked up to him all around as the great American hero. He's even married, I believe, to a white woman, and there's a mixture of race there. That's what the woke crowd wants. But the minute he decides that he is going to be a conservative or a Republican, or even go talk that Trump does some good things, he's a Uncle Tom, he's a coon, he's all these words. He's not the real African American. He's not black anymore.
Yep.
He doesn't even live there anymore. I mean, so you can't have your own thought process and ideology because they're going to pick and choose what to cancel.
So, Coach, let me clear the shit out of my eyes, and all of the nation, clear it out of yours. Let me just throw this out here. There's a guy that America all groveled over and loved to be around, and that was Donald J. Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Until he decided that he was going to run for president. And then all the people that groveled over him and went to all his parties and they had fun, even Hillary Clinton sucked up to him, had pictures with him.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da.
Rappers.
Everybody.
Looked up to him.
Everybody.
Mogul.
People from The View. Everybody. And then
what happened?
And then he is running against the party that has to be impenetratable. It can't be penetrated. It can't be. It has to stand on its own.
Do you realize something that we're talking about? It just hit me like a ton of bricks. They talk about those 5 Central Park guys that Trump put that big ad in the paper when he was just a real estate guy. And for 20 years after that come out, of course, that they weren't the ones. But for 20 years, there was nothing said about that. And then the minute that he becomes president, he's got a lifetime of racism.
Yeah.
A lifetime of just wanting to put black people in jail. A lifetime of treating them differently than others in his housing. But we never heard about those for 20 years, except for a couple of articles that was written in New York back 25 years ago. But it wasn't a streamed along thing. And now it's talked about in almost every interview when he talked about, tell me how Trump is racist. Those are the first 2 they bring up.
So what I'm going to throw out here is, and I'm going to bash the Democratic Party because it's so easy to do, is right now is I would venture to say that the Democratic Party is truly the party of hate instead of the party of freedom of speech. It used to be freedom of speech, but if you disagree with their speech, they hate you.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just going to throw this out here. No matter what anybody thinks, tell me what is bad about Melania Trump.
That is true. I still haven't figured that one out.
Tell me what is bad that Cosmopolitan, all these fancy magazines wouldn't even allow her to be on it. Who is a model
because she chose her husband?
Because not because she chose her husband, but because she stayed with her husband while he ran for president. Because prior to that, they didn't give a crap and they all liked her, and they don't say anything nice to her about how she does anything at all. They criticized everything. And Jill Biden puts up some freaking darn boxes from Staples up there in front of the White House, and everybody gets their all cookies all excited about that shit and everything else, and I'm like, really? That is what you got?
If you want to look at a first lady having major issues, you can go back just a few to Hillary Clinton. I mean, her man was committing adultery, sexual assault, and then not only did she take up for him, she put those women down at the time.
And not only that, when they left, they took shit from the White House.
They silverware, dude.
They took shit from the White House. They
didn't have enough
stole
money
from American people, because I need to have this more than it needs to be in this great institution for the world to see. So, you have those issues, but you think about this, and that kind of goes back to the freedom of speech. Because she's in the in club of my party, it's okay. But if that would have been anybody that was in the out club of my party, then we're going to suppress everything that they were about. Wow. And so if you think about this, we talked about blackface a little bit. But so, Coach, I'm just going to throw this out there. When we were kids, when we played Cowboys and Indians, because we did play those when we were kids, and you could go to the store and you could buy bows and arrows and you could buy guns, fake guns and cap guns and shoot at people and everything else. And we would go play this, so when we rub paint on our face, were we bad then? I mean, were we bad people?
Well, if you're going to judge people in 2021 based on things they did 20, 25, 50, 100, 200 years ago, you're always going to have an issue because you're looking for things. But what that really tells me is this. That's when I say that statement. What in 2021, I've said this before in 2021, can I do as a white American legally that a African American can't do legally in 2021?
Yeah.
But if we look back in 1960s or 1940s or
that's
1860s,
different.
of course you can. But what that does, Ved, is this. It means there's not the issue really now. So you're trying to find an issue.
You're digging.
So when you talk about not having a, yesterday the Cowboys beat the crap, or no, it wasn't last week, it was a month ago.
Yeah.
They beat the crap out of the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
But we can't call them the Washington Redskins. They're so terrified in Washington that they couldn't even give them a name. They're just called the Washington Football Team.
Yeah.
So
they beat the pants off of them.
But they're not taking that on what is going on in the country right now.
Yeah.
They're taking that based on what happened in, 1760 and 1840 and 1880. They're not taking that. And that's the same thing we hear with the same thing with your speech now. You're going to tell me we can't use certain words, read certain books, and watch certain movies because, God forbid we have freedom of expression and freedom to do what we want to, because it's going to offend someone based on what happened then, not based on what's going on now.
So for me, to be honest, Coach, is I would rather we have the freedom of speech that's afforded to us in the Constitution. That way, people are not robots and just go, I have to stick to this lexicon because I'll be in trouble. Instead, they will talk, and then you will be able to say, okay, that's probably not who I want as a friend because they're batshit crazy. You don't
even know who you're dealing with now because people are hiding who they really are.
Yeah, because they hide their true feelings, and it's a persona, and it's fake. People are not genuine no more. And so why would I want to, it's 1984. It's 1984 is all it is. And so why do we have people in Congress that sit there and censor people in Congress when at the end of the day, think about this, is they were elected by their people from their district to go represent them. Whether other people like them or not is irrelevant. It's those 800,000 people elected them to get there to go represent those 800,000 people. Piss on you, Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or whoever you are. Your thoughts are really irrelevant.
Absolutely. And we have a local politician in the Tyler area, which I don't like, his attitude. Mm-hmm. But his name is Louis Goldman. He keeps getting elected by his people 70% every time. You don't have to like the guy. I'm not a fan of the guy. I wouldn't want to vote for the guy again. But you know what? If the people here vote for him and he goes up there and doesn't follow the laws or the rules or the standard
acts a fool.
And acts a fool, but he keeps getting elected.
Yeah.
Why would you want to kick him out of office or kick him out of a committee just because you don't like him when he's only voted on by the people in the place he lives?
Yeah. He don't represent them. He don't give a crap about
Believe me, right now, you got people all this. I'm not, Talib, I can't stand her.
No.
AOC, I think she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But if her people in those areas that she represents vote for her, why can't she be in Congress? Of course she can.
If the people in the Detroit area in Michigan are batshit crazy enough to put Talib in there, then I guess they're batshit crazy enough. I lived there 2 years.
Didn't she tell her kid when they got in office that she's going to go after that MFer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. To her kid.
Impeach that. That's always good dinner table conversations to have, I presume.
Well, so, one of the last things I want to say on this freedom of speech and freedom of expression type mentality is this. If we don't realize that if we allow people to tell us what to say and do, there's always going to be somebody that has to set that standard of what is okay and what's not okay. And whoever is in power in this country, it's because it's more and more politicians are telling us what we can and can't do. Whatever party's in power, whatever sector of the country's in power is going to tell us what is acceptable and not. And if that continues to happen, the United States of America that we talk about liberty and freedom, that's not liberty and freedom.
Yeah.
That's not freedom of speech. That's not freedom of expression. And you have to walk around on eggshells what you can and cannot say. If you've ever been in a relationship with a woman that you had to walk around on eggshells, you know what that feels like. Imagine doing that all across the board 24/7 because you're terrified of losing your job or losing your home, losing a position based on what you have to say correct.
So, Coach, my question is, who's the censor in chief?
Exactly.
Who is that? Is that the president? Is that the Speaker of the House? Currently, we kind of think that might be. But is it the Senate?
Social media.
Is it the Senate Majority Leader? Is it social media? I mean, it was with Twitter. Or
Hollywood.
Or is it Hollywood? Or is it George Soros? Or is it mainstream media? Mainstream media has a lot to play in there too. And they are pretty good at listening to Metallica, Master of Puppets, pretty well. I will say that because they got that down. I mean, you got a whole Democratic Party just jiggling and jangling down there from them. So
You have
anyway,
to be careful.
Yeah, because if you don't be careful, what will happen? If you say something that goes against the grain, let's just go ask the Tea Party.
Yeah.
Were the Tea Party really witches, and did we really need to burn them at Salem?
If
or
they
were
were
they
the
really
enemy,
that
yes.
bad? No, but we made them out to be that way. The party in power did,
Yeah.
and we turned the media against them because we saw them as a threat. That when the next election comes, that they may be that just enough to keep me from being in power. So we had to go ostracize them, then stick the IRS on them, and all
Right.
that other stuff, So anyway.
And then before we go, how far is far back enough for it to be, well, I've grown up and I'm matured and I'm not that person anymore? I know you and I talked about that before. We've had some people 10 or 12 years in the past say something in an email. Maybe they're not that person now. Maybe the person wore the Michael Jackson blackface in 1984 because Michael Jackson was the most famous pop star in America at the time, and the dude could do the moonwalk. But now in 2021, should he be canceled? Is there something I did when I was 18, 19, and 20 that now I wouldn't do, but am I based on it in 2021 or 22 on that?
Well, I think a good example.
What is the statute of limitations on this stuff?
I don't know.
We got to figure this out.
There's
'cause I
statute of
could get in
limitations
trouble.
on everything else, but let's just say this is, I'm not here to support what he put in emails and all that other stuff, but John Gruden's a perfect example.
Exactly.
He sent emails when he was not in the NFL. He was in the media supporting the NFL. Okay? So he sent these emails out, and I'm not here to condone what he sent because those were wrong as whatever you want to call it. Okay? But 10 years have evolved, and what's going on right now? He has a lawsuit because a lot leaned on the Oakland Raiders, not the Las Vegas Raiders.
Media, social
what
media.
are you going to do about this? Well, there's a lawsuit now, and I would not be surprised if he prevails because freedom of speech will prevail before it's all over.
Well, not only that, you got the First Amendment with the freedom of speech, but you also got the 14th Amendment with the equality, the equality clause in there that everything to be treated equally. So should he be able to say something in an email, or should now all emails just be, instead of private, should they be public for someone to, an Edward Snowden type nightmare that he talked about where the government is watching everything? Are they going to start putting these words out that are like a trigger word? I hate to use the word trigger, that if you say something in email or text and we say a bad word, it's going to pop up, and then that's going to be public record for everyone. It sounds crazy, but it's not crazy.
So, Coach, one thing I'll say is I was in the military, and I was running a battalion, and I would send back to my rear detachment. He belongs to me. I am supposed to provide guidance and direction for my rear detachment while we're deployed. What's up with these guys here? Why has this one not been chaptered out? I asked that question. Why has it not been chaptered out? Well, I had a brigade sergeant get mad. It's like, you're forcing him to chapter him out. I'm not forcing him. I'm asking him, why is he not being chaptered out?
Not?
Is he doing something good, and has he overcome it that prevails that? But what I've learned in emails, even with no bad intent and no bad words in there at all,
Context, yeah.
people put emotion into what they read, regardless as 10 or not. So I had a simple policy: is any email that might be construed as being bad, my battle buddy would read it before I sent it out. I never sent anything in anger, and my battle buddy read it. Now, that's not necessarily the case with John Gruden, back then, but you're getting rid of him. Oh, you got rid of him, a while back.
Really
over something 10 years it was not in that profession. There's some legal issues with that right there.
And not only that, one of the second things that kind of put the secondary pressure on him was Keyshawn Johnson, that used to be with him in the Bucks and then was with the Cowboys at the time, had a major disagreement with him years ago.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a vendetta. He came out and said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I told y'all then that this guy was a bad guy, this, and this. And that put extra credit of somebody that has a personal vendetta to put pressure on the Las Vegas team. And here comes social media and the liberal media right on top. Well, here's another example of it.
Yeah. And so it is, if we cry enough and we're in the right party, we can.
Hey, make sure you delete all of our texts and emails.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you cry enough, you're in the right party. You can get what you want. And if it fits my party's form.
Oh my gosh! And we can't go to locker rooms anymore. Can't talk about women in locker rooms anymore. About how fine they are.
Yeah, those shower talks, those days are long gone and over with. And I will say this, Coach. My wife would tell me this when she would go down to Grafenveer and Hohenfels and shower with the young lady. She goes, the women talk just as much as the men.
Hey,
so I don't know. I ain't been in there, so I don't know.
You mean they say grab them by the you-know-whats too?
Well, I don't know about that, wow. but they.
I wish they grabbed me by my booty.
She says it was very enlightening. So anyway, so from the coach
to the vet.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.